Hi, everybody, and good morning. Thank you all for joining us. I'm talking to you, as you may have seen, live from Rye, New York, and I have here Haim Oz with us, who is speaking from Israel. Good morning, good afternoon. Haim, we don't hear you. You're muted.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Where are you in Israel?
I'm currently in Netanya, which is a town something like 20 minutes north to Tel Aviv, which I suppose that everyone know. And this is where our offices are located. And our actual farm that I will present in a second is nearby, another 10 minutes north to where I'm sitting.
Got it. Thank you. And maybe I will just read a very short bio of yours, and you can tell us a little bit more. Haim Oz is the CEO of Seakura Sea for Life. He has 25 years of experience in the agribusiness world. Started his professional career in Africa in the 90s. And since then, had diverse agricultural businesses around the world, held a number of senior management positions in Israeli companies in the field of agribusiness, and currently is, as I said, the CEO of Seakura. So maybe we can start by a little bit of your story. How did you end up in agri-tech? How did you what were you doing in Africa? What kind of companies were you involved with in Israel? A little bit of your background and what led you to where you are today.
Thank you, gladly. So I'm actually a third generation of farmers in Israel, and I born to the field. Agriculture was a part of my life since I was a little boy, and it's still till now my passion. So I'm considering myself as a lucky man that actually works in something that consider as a passionate item or subject or professional. After I finish school and university, I had my first job opportunity in Africa. I lived for 2 years in Uganda and 1 year in Ethiopia. It was
why Africa?
It just was what something that been offered to me, and I was for me it was an interesting opportunity. Africa is an amazing continent with a lot of challenges, and back then the state of Israel, part of an agreement that they had with Ethiopia, based on the Jews, the Ethiopian Jews that they brought to Israel, something like the payback was helping by advanced technology to the local farmers, and they sent a team of professional Israelis back there in order to implement new technologies for improving quality, quantity, and all that concern of doing agriculture in the new age. Since then till now, I'm doing most of my years. I was in what you can consider as a conservative part of agriculture, which mean vegetables, fruits, animals, stock, and all those issues. And in the last year, I started to be interested in sea agriculture, which is another element that has been developed around the world and in Israel in particular in the last few years. for many reasons that I will elaborate in my presentation in a second. And it's fascinating. It's actually something that I'm learning each day, and I like to learn new stuff and new things. But between the 90s until I started to manage as a CEO in Seakura, I had a lot of experience. I lived for a few years in Mexico, a few years in the US, doing what I know. I manage Hazera, which is a seed company, Israeli seed company. I was the manager of Latin America in another Israeli company involving in irrigation and water supply. And all my 25 years of experience brought me to the place that I can diverse my activity around agriculture. And now I decided to be focused on what we call the marine agriculture. And this is what Seakura is all about.
Very interesting. Actually, you mentioned Mexico. One of my speakers at our conference in New York next month is one of the most well-known families in Mexico. Her name is Gina Diaz Barroso, but her family name is Azaraga, which I probably mispronounced. They established the largest network, TV network, Spanish television network in Latin America. You know, we had a session with her actually a week ago. So it's very interesting. I will read, first of all, maybe before we'll jump to what you do and the innovation you bring to the seaweed world. How is it going with COVID in general in Israel? I hear things look good. And how did it affect your space in general?
Well, yes, we are now in a very good situation regarding the COVID-19 situation. Actually, I think starting 2 days ago, I can say that more than half of the population is already vaccinated, which is 5.3 million people are already vaccinated. In Israel, we are waiting for the approval of Pfizer and to vaccine children up to the age of 16. And by having that, I'm assuming that till August, around 80% of the population will be vaccinated. So I can tell you that here in Israel, starting next week, we don't need to go with mask anymore, and everything is open. And we can say that we back to normal life, which is very good. But the last year was a challenging year for each one of us personally, but as a business person as well. When you are managing a company with a new thing that you don't know how to handle regarding so many aspects, business-wise. It was a good year for us. One of our line of products are concerning dietary supplements. And for the obvious reason, that market was increasing in the last year of the corona in all over the world, by the way, not just in Israel. So we had our share regarding that. And I can say that we are here now pretty safe against that horrible virus, and we are back on track.
That's great. And soon we'll start to understand your space and what you do and the innovation you bring. Like so much out of Israel, innovation is very important, and you definitely do that. Maybe I will read shortly just a part of what I wrote about you when I did the post. And I think the bottom line is that instead of harvesting seaweed, which we'll talk about in a second, why you harvest seaweed on land, in and not just from the sea as one might have thought. And that's really what I called in our session the miracle of Israel's land-based seaweed for the cosmetics and food industries, and the sustainable investment that is part of this, because you're basically keeping the ocean safe and do it in a very safe way. We'll talk about it in a second. From my perspective, I'm happy, to share that you basically chosen to take the challenge of protecting the oceans while doing what you do, and the resources. And therefore, you created a sustainable system of developing unique technology for land-based seaweed farming as the basis for the continuing development of a healthy food chain while remaining vigilant about the environment and the ecosystem. So maybe, and I know you have a presentation that you'll share with us in a second, but maybe for those of us who don't know, we harvest seaweed for what exactly? For food in Japanese dishes, or for beauty care? What's going on right now in the world? How was it harvested so far, and why?
Okay, like most of different products that jump into our life, I'm talking about the Western world mostly. Seaweed are being used for generation in Asia, mostly Japan, China, Korea, South and North, and Thailand, etc. The leading consumption was all back then in Japan, and went down to all other countries in Asia, basically as a superfood, for two reasons. First, it was the cheapest available vegetable that people could find back then, many years back. And second of all, with the years come by, they discovered that the values or the minerals that seaweed contain are actually allow us to call it a superfood as we are defining it today. And the reason is that a seaweed you can consider as a sponge, okay? Now, as it grows at sea, the sea is full of mineral for all kind of mineral that you can imagine. The sea is one of the richest or the most by creating the word
Nutrition.
nutritious minerals. Sorry, and by the seaweed growing in the sea, the seaweed absorb all those values. And by doing that, it became the most common vegetable. There is evidence in Israel, in the biblical time of Israel, that the ancient people that live here near the coast feed their stock, their sheep and goats and cows, by seaweeds. Because Israel, as you probably, some of you know, was mostly desert back then. The availability of supplement to the stock was limited, and they found the seaweed as a source of feeding for animal. And that is very interesting by itself. But not before that, we started with the seaweed. As I said, it started in Asia. By the time goes by, and we all became a very industrial society, ships, oil, gas that we are sourcing from the sea, using the sea to throw away gray water, what we called, and sewer. We actually affected the sea, and the sea is also a part of a source of great and rich of minerals. It became a source of pollution. And as I said, the seaweed is a sponge, also absorb those polluted elements that we created as a humanity around the seas around the world. And basically most of the seaweed that people consuming today, even in sushi, are seaweed that been harvested from the sea with certain elements of pollution. The other thing is that the sea or the seaweed as a vegetable is a very seasonal. As much as the years goes by and people started to consume more and more seaweed, the market had the demand, but the supply was limited because it depended on season. It's like any other fruit or vegetable that you know out there. Also, seaweeds are not growing 365 days a year. In each type of seaweed, you can find in different seasons around the year. And that limit the availability in order to supply the demand that been created due to the high consumption of seaweed. Another part is a part of the quality and the availability and consistent supply. Today, with more and more society, people, regulatory factors came into our life in order to keep our health and what we are consuming to make sure that we have the safe measures in order to see that people are not taking things that can affect them badly. And by doing or by creating our technology, we are keeping a paper trail. And actually, each seaweed that we are sending to the market, we have a paper trail that define the quality, and that is another advantage that we are bringing to the table comparing to seaweeds that have been harvested in the open sea, in the wild. Just months back in Israel, we had a disaster here that a ship that crossed outside of the territorial water of Israel dropped oil to the sea, and all our shores became polluted by oil in a way that we had ecological damage, a very serious ecological damage. Actually, till now, it's not allowed to people to get into the sea because of that issue that happened. And that is another example why it's important to separate the sea from what we are eating eventually or using.
And those who harvest in the sea damage the sea in their methods and how they work currently?
Yes, I will talk about one of the products that we are aiming to get is called agaros. Agar, which is been used very extensively in the food industry. That material is being harvested with a seaweed that's called gilidium in the shores of Morocco and Portugal. For many years of wild harvest, they actually damage the shorelines of Portugal and Morocco because harvesting intensively the gilidium, and the gilidium is on the edge of extinction because of that. So the answer to your question, definitely yes. When you are using tools and any other measures in order to harvest, eventually you are hurting the other life in the same part that you are harvesting. When that been made extensively, like in the case that I told you right now, that damage is for years. I can tell you more than that, that there is countries that provide that regulatory or make laws not to harvest gilidium. For example, in Portugal, it's not allowed anymore because of that reason. In Morocco, they are still harvesting, In India, they are still harvesting, but that is a problem. And our solution for that matter is another seaweed that called Gracilaria that can replace the Gilidium with the same quality, but with no damage to the sea or the shores or the other life that are out there.
And it's used for which industries again? Well, obviously food industry, but also cosmetics.
Yes, cosmetics and medicine, mostly
Medicine.
laboratory. You asked me about the COVID-19. So in that year, many new terms get into our life, and one of them was PCR checks in order to check if you have COVID or not. In order to do those checks, you need to use a material that's called agarose. Agarose is a material that came out of the agar, which is the basic raw material. In certain process, you are improving the quality up to the agarose, and all lab checks that been done all over the world are been done with agarose. In order to explain it better, there is lack of 400 ton a year of agar and 140 ton of agarose in the world today. And the corona year make it worse because there is much more checkups that been done, medical checkups, and the shortage is huge. This is why, for example, the price of agarose today is around 1,000 to 1,300 dollars per kg of that material. And that is one of the advantages of growing in the way that we are growing. We are not affecting anything.
And when you're looking at your, you know what, maybe I'll ask before that, how old is the company? When was it established? And was that the idea from day one to create, to bring that innovation of land harvesting really?
It's interesting. The company was established in 2007. And the motivation was actually philanthropic. Yossi Carta, which is the owner and the main investor in Seakura, he had health issues, health issues. He was heavyweight and he had a lot of troubles, and he tried to look what can bring him or what can help him resolve those issues, and he read about algae. So he started to take them, and 2 years after, all the bad blood pressure and all the issues that he suffered went away, and more than that, he reduced from 130 kg, he became 75 in 2 years, just by using algae. He didn't change anything in his diet, no sport, nothing. So at that point, he understood that there is something here. It's not just other experience or something like that. And he decided that he devoted his life, thanks to what he had, to bring healthy food to the people. His vision was to bring seaweed to every 5th kitchen in Israel. That was very potentious. We didn't got that objective, but we did an amazing work by taking that same idea that started in his mind in 2007 and brought that up to perfection today. And actually, he, in many ways, he was a visionary. When he started to speak about ulva and gracilaria, which are the 2 seaweeds that we are talking, no one in the world believed that he can do something about it. Today, there is a lot of people that are trying to copy that and trying to grow those seaweeds. Until now, there's no one that can do that in the level that we are doing that. And it's amazing. It's amazing.
We will see your presentation in a second, but maybe before that, how so far the company was funded in which way? Friends and family, or how was it? What got you so far financially?
Yes, Yossi Carta, the owner, and his family were the only investor till now, till this second, and they finance all the activity from 2007 till that day, 100%. Yes.
I see. Interesting. So that's the first time you guys would be open for co-investors to join you. And currently, and again, I'm sure some of it you'll answer in your presentation. Currently, you are already selling the products to different clients, and if so, where in the world?
Okay. I will start by telling you a little bit about the evolution of the company. So as I mentioned, they started as a almost philanthropic idea. There is even a very nice, interesting visitor center in our farm that invite kids and schools to learn about the sea and about seaweed and fish and all that. But in some point, he understood that there is a business potential, and he started to do an R&D concerning culinary products. So with the years, they were developed bread with seaweed, dips, any kind of dips with seaweed, pasta with seaweed, etc., etc. But we didn't had business success regarding those products. So back 3 years back, they decided, I was still not in the company, that they will make it through dietary supplements. So the company invested in a line of products in dietary supplements that the main driver for that is iodine, green iodine. And the green iodine is a very important element in each one of our to keep the hormonal shape of our body in the right strain. So today we started to be commercial with that line 2 years back, and after 2 years we are in 430 point of sale around Israel, pharmaceuticals and places that sell products, natural products. Along with that, we developed a formulation for a line of cosmetic products with creams of anti-aging and peeling and all that, based on that same idea of seaweed. That line will be launched in 5 months from now. And now we are starting to go and start to sell it out of Israel, to export those line of product after 2 years of using Israel as a beta site in order to improve ourselves in many aspects. But the challenge is that those line of products are what we call the B2C. And in B2C line of product, you need to invest a lot of money in order to have it properly in the market. When I joined into the company and I started to learn about seaweed, one of the things that jumped into my eyes is that the seaweed is actually some kind of a mine that is full of minerals, okay? And that point, I understand that we can go in B2B approach and actually extract those seaweeds that we are growing with all the good minerals that we have, like protein, like iodine, like antioxidant, several antioxidants that we have, which the main market for those are food industry and pharma industry. So 5 months back, we started to build the IP around those extractions. We are in the, and one of the reasons that we decided to open ourselves to other investors, because we need to jump the next step. And the next step is actually to make it commercial. We have a lot of potential clients in line, like the world, Nestle, Coca-Cola, Unilever. Many companies are waiting for us to be able to send them the product, and the reason is mostly protein. And the reason that the protein that goes out of seaweed is the only protein that can be considered as a whole protein, with all the 10 amino acid that are considered as very important. But in order to be defined as a whole protein, you need 20 amino acid to be inside. And the only source, veggie source that have in nature is seaweed. You cannot find it in soy, you cannot find it in chickpeas, you cannot find it in any other veggie product that today are being used for extraction of protein. And more than that, the add value is, in order to do it from soy or other, you need thousand of hectares in order to produce, by using land, using sweet water, using all those resources that became, in some places around the world, very precious. And by using seaweed based on our system, you can produce it with almost relatively nothing. With 1 hectare or 2 hectare, you can produce 3,000 tons a year of protein, which is huge. Okay.
And just before I let you go to your presentation, 2 last questions. Do you have competitors that harvest it on inland? And how competitive is the pricing? I mean, the harvesting in the sea versus on inland, how does that look like?
Okay, that is easy, straightforward. To harvest seaweeds on sea, the price drive from 50 cents to 80 cents per kg. That is the cost of how much it costs to harvest seaweed from the sea. But when you are doing that, you are doing that with all the problems that we mentioned. Okay. One of the challenges that I had is how I'm competing with that. And one of the things that we did, we invested a lot in order to reduce cost. And today, I can tell you that the cost of production with all the technology and the add value that we are bringing is $1.7, $1.8 per kg, which is almost like growing soy. I don't know if you're familiar, but to grow soy today in the world costs you between 90 cents to $1.10 per kg. So the cost of production is not of my concern anymore, basically. And if we are taking the prices of the end product and the profit that you can do, so that difference is it's not something to consider. In my presentation, I will talk a little bit about pricing of how much costs protein and agarose and all that, and you will understand that it's not a big deal. But that is where we are with that.
And others also grow inland, or?
There's no there's no major players around the world today. There is a very small farm in Australia. There is a very small farm in Portugal. Both of them are working with us in coordination. But there is no inland seaweed cultivation for culinary and all what I mentioned today, except us around the world.
So we have a lot of questions coming here, but I'll let you maybe start with a presentation that will walk us through most, in order of your market and what you're offering, and how does that look like. Hopefully we want to understand also, I guess, the size of the market and other issues, but let's start with that. You're on mute again, Haim.
Now you can see, yeah.
Now we can see and hear you.
Yeah, great. So, okay. Why it's not okay? So as I mentioned, Seakura established as an R&D farm in 2007, privately owned, growing seaweed on land, and innovative patent technology. That is basically our story, as I mentioned. The vision was, as I said, a bit of a philanthropic vision by protecting the ocean in two main perspectives. One time, we are not harvesting from the sea with all the effect that harvest from sea create. And the other aspect is, I will tell you, for example, right now we are participating in a very interesting pilot in order to clean the water in ship ports around the world. Actually, a seaweed can use as a biological filter. When you are crossing a pool with seaweed, you're actually cleaning the water. And in our farm, for example, after the process is finished, we are throwing back the water back to the sea. And the water that goes out of the farm to the sea are much clean than what they get into the farm. So that is another perspective or aspect of how we can contribute to protecting the ocean. Our system is a sustainable ecosystem. We are not using elements, and that is a very, it's actually one of the points that we are insisting not to create more pollution in order to create our product. We are very minimal in energy. We're actually using what God is giving us, which is CO2, light, etc., etc. And we are pumping water from the sea, and we are not using any fresh water. Creating a healthy food chain and a climate change solution by not using natural resources like the typical farming has been using. The situation, and as we talk, so the problem is that our ocean, unfortunately, are polluted, unstable supply, low quality of crop, and unstable production. You can get 1 year certain level, and the second will be better or worse. And the Seakura solution is, as mentioned, a unique land-based tech patent by technology. So the technology is allow us to have a year-round cultivation, monitored, fully controlled, to keep a regulatory paper trail compliant with strength regulations, the EU, the USDA organic, etc., etc. Fast growth cycle. We actually can do 11 cycles a year by using that method, comparing any other sea harvest that for the max can happen 3 months a year. Our product enjoy a long shelf life, which allow you as a manufacturer a lot of versatility by having it dry or frozen, and high value efficient land use. As I mentioned, comparing to other alternative, we don't need a lot of land. Anything between 10 to 100 hectare, it's enough to produce very large quantities. The technology is patent, Israeli unique technology, land-based system, premium quality seaweed, and optimal nutritional values. All that elements are patent, which mean that the consistent quality that we can get, for example, if we are saying that we have 35% protein in our ulva seaweed, we are keeping that number repeatedly with the highest quality needed in order to have it as a product. Sustainable ecosystem. So we have the pollution, we are taking the seaweed into pools. We're giving them what nature given us, which is CO2, which is nutritions and all elements from the air. And out of those seaweed, we able to produce all kind of products that we will mention in a second. And by doing that, we actually keeping the line consistent and sustainable. Our seaweed is grown in organic condition. We have no chemicals involved here, nothing that is not 100% natural. And with that, we have the international standard for heavy metals. We are complying with all pesticides and biological pollution. We even, the only seafood that considered kosher, which is, which people that understand in kosher issue, it's a challenge. The highlights in market, the drivers are by using seaweed, we can cover a multiple industry coverage that we will see in a second. Growing consumer awareness regarding the health benefits and algae-based products. By using that, the market is pretty large and create a very interesting driver regarding that, and we'll see the numbers in a second. The impact of climate condition of algae production is actually almost zero. The opportunities are there in many ways, starting with the governmental initiatives all over the world by creating and using those resources that are not being used enough or properly, by understanding that it's a stream of income and creating jobs, growing of the demand, and eventually, after you are implementing the technology to cultivate algae, it's not something that it's complex. The challenges are, as I mentioned, when you are aiming yourself to B2C, mostly in the culinary field, food is food, or you like it or you not like it, and it's challenging to get to many people that will be sufficient enough in order to consume your product, and that is definitely a challenge. And eventually, to have enough land, even though that it's not so big, to grow enough raw material in order to supply the demand. So the farm gate application, based on our two kind of seaweed that we are growing, which is the ulva, the green, and the gracilaria, which is the brown. We know how to, and by the way, that is one of the patent technology is how to do a fresh frozen seaweed. In many countries, that is a product shelf product. In Europe, for example, in Italy, we are selling around 40 tons a year of fresh frozen, just for ongoing consumption. Other form is flax and, of course, powder, which considered as dry material. So, if we are talking a little bit about the market, as you can see here, between the Americas, Asia, Europe, and the rest of the world, the demand is pretty high. The estimation for 2023 is $5 billion, which is used with a growth rate of anything between 5 to 6% a year in different markets, make it very attractive as a business. We talked a lot about the natural values of seaweed in general and our in particular. So you will find protein, fibers, minerals from different kinds, antioxidant, etc., in very high values in each one of them. But each one of those seaweeds will go to different products based on the values that that seaweed bring to the table. For example, the gracilaria will be focused on the agar product, as I mentioned before, and the ulva, we will go most for the protein and the antioxidants. If we are comparing the value, the protein value in other foods that normally are a source of protein, which is meat, chicken, and egg, in ulva, the whole protein is 35 gram, and all those numbers are per 100 grams. So as you can see, we are definitely in the highest level that we can find when we are basing ourselves on seaweed. If we will compare it to veggie sources, so again here, seaweed will have a large portion of whole protein, which is important. For example, in chickpea, you will find just 13 to 14 amino acids, while in seaweed you will have 20. The potential, and that was, there is a joke here among us that one of our challenges is to focus ourselves on the market, because seaweed can be relevant for each one of those markets that mentioned here. Extraction, as an agricultural fertilizer. I can tell you that one of the companies in our group, our company that grow cannabis, medical cannabis, and we did an experiment over there by fertilize our seaweed just to learn what is the effect, and it was amazing what we had. Animal food, there is already researchers that know to say that we can reduce carbon footprint by giving animals, especially cows, seaweed by reducing the carbon footprint by 30%, which is a lot. As I mentioned, as a biological filter for cosmetics and of course supplements. So those are most attractive groups or line of groups that we can do with seaweed. Today, Seakura products, the ongoing, as I mentioned, we have a line of products regarding culinary. We have the dietary supplements and cosmetics. And those are the existing ongoing product, which are the stream revenue till today for us. The B2B line of product that we are aiming are the extractions that the two main that we are focusing right now in the it's the agarose and the protein, and along the way we will be able to invest in other minerals that we have in the seaweed, but it's need much more R&D process and obviously investment in order to get them. So the most available product are the protein and the agarose. If we are converting the market into actual products, again, here you can see that in food and beverage, which normally is been selling as a dry material, as I saw you in the other slide, we are talking about $1.5 billion market. In dietary supplements, more or less the same. In feed, it's meaning here feed for animals, personal care, which is cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and others. As you can see, up to 2023, we are aiming to have more than $5 billion market around the world regarding those line of products. So the going ecological debate towards the clean and healthy ecosystem is getting the top priority in every governmental agenda in the world. And that is amazing because we've been approached for places in Africa and in Asia when government are willing and wanting to find and buy our technology in order to create a sustainable line of food source and jobs and a lot of things that they want to create locally. Circular economy, it's the one thing that we consider is the new generation of when talking about advanced economies. So actually our solution is exactly combined with that definition. Sustainability is not just a slogan for us, it's actually the ongoing working that we are doing. During the years, I met a lot of very interesting solutions that try to be sustainable, but or they are not economic, or they are not they are premature, or any other reason why they cannot be performed as a product in the end. And we proved that we are 100% sustainable in every way. And yes, back to our mission and vision. Seakura wants to take an active role in improving men's well-being and keeping healthy food chain by remaining vigilant about the environment and not forgetting each one of those elements. So what we are looking for. The combination of a sustainable technological system and advanced line of products, that is actually what we are bringing to the table in order to accomplish and achieve all what I mentioned by taking the line of extraction from the laboratory level to commercial. We are looking to raise for $10 million and in return of 25% of the company holdings. And that is actually our offer. You can jump into our website and maybe better understand a little bit of what we are doing. There is a lot of more information that you can find there for those that find that interesting enough. And that's it for now.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions.
Yes, of course.
What is the distance from the ocean to the Seakura farm?
1.5 kilometers.
Are you using sea salt to cultivate the seaweed?
Yeah, we are using seawater. One of the, actually, part of the patent is how we're doing exactly that. We are using shore whale. It's a whale that is 70 meters deep. We are pumping the water not directly from the sea. We are using that whale for two purposes. One, to keep the temperature in the exact balance that we need and want for the seaweed. And second, the whale itself using as a filter that filter 90% of the pollution that we want to avoid to have in our seaweed. So we actually have a whale on shore that we are pumping the water into the farm.
We have more questions. I will just ask a couple and I will let everybody know that as usual, we will be sending the recording of this session to all of you, as well as the contact information to Haim directly so you can ask more questions. Haim, if you can get out of the presentation, we can see you better. But just maybe I'll pick another question or two. How deep is the shore well?
70 meters. But it's not necessarily have to be that deep. It's depending in different location. In our case, that is how deep it is, 70 meters. Sorry guys, we are metric here in Israel, so you will have to walk a little bit and convert.
How does climate change affect this industry?
It's not affecting. The first ulva that been harvested to use in our farm was harvested in 2008. That was the last time that we harvested from the sea. Since then, all the branches is out. We are not harvesting from the sea anything. So by using a land-based system, we are not depending on climate change at all.
I want to also add that an area that definitely needs and invests a lot in agro-related investments is, of course, the UAE, being an even more desert than you guys are in Israel.
Yes, yes.
And Haim will be speaking at our UAE conference that, as some of you know, is under the patronage of the Ministry of Economy with the Chamber of Commerce, with Israel Export Technology Institute and High Tech Association and INSEAD and Family Business Council of the Gulf, many, many great players and great people. So those of you that would like a nice vacation and enjoy a great conference in the UAE, you'll be able to meet Haim in person. Maybe just another question. What about disease risks?
There's no disease. There's no diseases.
It can affect the plants, you know, when you grow them, you know.
Yes, yes, yes. If you will use, if you will take the seaweed and you will start to, the seaweed, they have a pattern, okay, grown pattern. The seaweed get into the top in 5 weeks. We are starting the process in 7 grams of culture of seaweed, okay? In 5 weeks, that 7 grams become 500 kilo. The growing rate of algae in our farm is 30% per day. You actually can stand and see the algae grow, for that matter, okay? And that is amazing. Now, if you will not know when to pick it, then you can it can be melt, and then you can have problem with diseases. But one of the things that we know how to do is to prevent that, and we have zero accident or issues with diseases. A part of that, we are using nets that covering the pools. By doing that, we are actually preventing insects to get in. It's true that we are doing that mostly from kosher reasons, okay? But that helps us to have better control on the seaweed itself as well.
Are you pumping seawater straight to the farm or using truck transportation?
No. Direct pump, no truck.
Can you elaborate on IP? Where do you have the patent and is it granted?
Yes, we have the patent in the US, we have the patent in Korea, we have the patent in Europe, and of course in Israel. We are now working on doing that in China. But yes, that was granted, and we have the technology patent, and commercial marks also are registered. So we are pretty much covered on that.
That's a question I'm not sure you would know, but if somebody's asking, is there a tax benefit considering that it's a positive impact investment as well, investing with you? But I'm not sure you would know that answer. But
I will not know that answer. We need to check it. If you're asking if the government of Israel will give some tax benefits, I will check that. In many times, Israel is want to bring a foreign investor, and there is tax benefits just because of that, not because it's a seaweed and not because it's sustainable. But I need to check that part to give a straight answer.
Okay, I think that's about it. I mean, we had a lot of questions here, and it's very, very interesting, the innovation coming from your end in this space. By the way, did COVID affect the consumption? Are more people, yes?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Positively.
Yeah. We see that, and we get a lot of interesting feedback from people by all media, Instagram, Facebook. People are writing us by using our products, because there was a research that was published in Israel. I think that around the world, that green iodine helps to prevent deep problems when you're getting the COVID-19, mostly in breathing and all that systems, by using or giving back to the. There is a research that defined that 86% of the population in the world suffering from lack of iodine. Okay. That happened for many, many reasons. In each place, it's because different one: lack of sun, use of industrial food, water that are recycled and are very poor in minerals. Many reasons for that. And the health department in Israel recommend people to consume green iodine in order to help ourselves to improve our injection system by having corona or in general.
Got it. Great. So, Haim, I wanted to thank you for your time, and we're looking forward to seeing you in person. And again, any questions, we will send. You will connect you directly with Haim. Another person is asking, what's the current value of the company?
The current value of the company is around $40 million.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to thank each one of you for finding the time to hear us and participate in that. And I hope that you find it interesting enough in order to get to know, hopefully, most of you. And God bless us all.
Thank you so much. Stay safe, Haim. It's been very interesting, and I can see it. I can see most attendees stayed until the last minute, and we've been here for over an hour now. So thank you, and we will see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.